Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of Pump Up the Volume. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the new episode.
Hey guys, I'm Jennie.
I'm Ainay.
I'm Shae.
And my name is Rachael.
And we're Pump Up the Volume! Yay!
Woo!
So, due to the rise in Asian hate crimes and just racism against the Asian community in general, that has been highlighted and very visible throughout the past few months and years, and especially in quarantine, Pump Up the Volume has decided to sit down and have an open conversation about the topic, seeing as we're all Asians. And we're just going to ask each other a few questions where we can share out our opinions, views, and especially our encounters with racism. So the first person to go can be Shae.
Sure. How have you faced racism in everyday life?
Well, for me, I guess I've just had to hear and listen to the same Asian stereotypes and racist jokes and questions that aren't supposed to be offensive, but they are. Like, where are you from? Like, Ching Chong, Ling Ling, don't eat my dog. Tell Kim Jong Un not to bomb us from North Korea. Just those kind of things. And I know this is a really common experience for a lot of Asian Americans, but it's like this collective thing that we have to go through. And it's just part of my experience too. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like so
me
much
too.
of it is like normalized, you know? Like people will call out other stuff against other like minorities, but when it comes to like Asians, there's so many people who like do like the eye thing, you know, like when they make their eyes smaller or something. Or like I've got asked like, do you eat dogs or whatever, you know? And like people just laugh, and it's not funny, first of all. And I don't know, it's like very offensive, and people just don't realize that it is because everyone sees Asians as this like model kind of minority.
Yeah, I feel like recently it's gotten a lot better with like denormalization, I guess. For me, like the racism, I guess, mainly happened in elementary school when kids would find out that I was Asian some way or another, and then they would start like making the jokes at me.
Yeah, for me, in elementary school, same with Rachel, all that ching chong thing. They think it's like a joke. And like, sometimes we'll just like laugh it off. But really like it's pretty offensive. And then but like recently last year I remember, I'm not gonna name any names, but like it was kind of in March when Corona was about to start hitting and stuff in America and stuff. And these guys would just like use pencils and like pretend to like use them as chopsticks. And it was just like for a whole week. And it was so rude and mean.
Also, I hate how it took like a global pandemic for people to finally realize that this shouldn't be normalized and that like we are also being like oppressed, you know.
I think racism in general is very normalized. But if we were to talk specifically about Asian Americans and just the Asian community in general, I think we're like slowly taking the steps to like open up the conversation. I mean, we've always been trying to, but I think now during this time, this is like the most where we've been like collected and open to sharing our experiences and our opinions. And I think the reason for that hesitation that a lot of us have felt is because we've been told that hey, like Asians are the model minority, like you guys shouldn't be complaining, or like we've just been told as to be like snowflakes for taking those racist jokes and commentary like offensive. So I think just all of that in general has made us as a community like kind of like try to endure it, even though we shouldn't have to. But yeah, I think that's just the main factor for where we are right now. But at least we're trying to open up more, which is great.
Yeah, I feel like in the moment when people were like saying those jokes, I just laughed off. But now that I think about it, I get really mad. I'm just like, why didn't I stand up for myself? Like, that is not okay.
Yeah, so I've been in like situations too where like people like mock accents in front of me, like Asian accents in front of me, or they say racist jokes to me. And it's really uncomfortable because it feels wrong. I know it's wrong. But it's even more uncomfortable when you're in that gray area between like, should I laugh it off or should I speak up for myself? Because whenever I think about speaking up for myself, or I do, I'm always told that I'm overreacting and that I should just take a joke and I should just stay on the low. And so I've been conditioned to feel like that it's wrong for me to speak up, that I'm being the annoying friend for speaking up. So yeah, it's just all in all, it's like this whole balance between wrong and right where everything just feels wrong, but me acting like I don't care is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think myself, like, even myself, I thought it was kind of normalized. So I laughed at, like, all the jokes kind of too. And sometimes I didn't even, like, see a problem, you know? Like, I didn't recognize it until, like, after the fact.
Yeah, and also, like, it's become, like, so prevalent and normal that, like, I think a lot of young Asian kids start wanting to, like, feel like they wanna be white instead of Asian because of, like, all the anti-Asianness that's normal in their, like, everyday life with their, like, peer group and what they see in the media and everything. Like, I know when I was little, I wanted to be completely white, um, 'cause, like, it's just, like, the little comments, they kinda add up, and then they start getting to you, like, "Ew, like, what does that smell? Like, what are you bringing for lunch?" And, like, "Oh, ching chong, like, you have, like, Asian eyes," or whatever.
Yeah, and I like completely understand you. I think all of us had to go through that experience too. But even more so, I feel like it's ironic how almost all Asians have had to go through that exact experience where they hear the exact same phrases. And it's
Hmm.
just like, come on, those are boring, they're offensive, they're overrated, they're
Right.
overused. Like, think of something new at least, you know? Just
Yeah.
kidding. But yeah, and it's just like the fact that we all have to go through that, it's really sad and it's really like unfortunate. But yeah. So, Shay, do you want to ask the next question?
Sure. Okay. My next question is, should people hire people in movies or like hire people for jobs because they're people of color? This is not really like related to just Asian racism and discrimination. This is about like all races of minorities kind of.
I'm not really this is kind of a hard one for me because I do think that representation definitely matters. Like, ultimately, the best person for the job should get the job, but I do think that Asians, like, are massively underrepresented in media, and usually it's the other way around, like, the minority isn't getting the job even when they are the best ones for the job, and I do think casual representation needs to be more of a thing.
Yeah, I think that representation does matter so much because growing up as a kid, getting to see someone who speaks like you, who looks like you, or who comes just from the same background as you, play a multitude of characters, whether that be a superhero or a villain or a like model on screen allows people to steer away from the stereotypes that are perpetuated through the media that are offensive and rude and negative and are inaccurate. And not only that, there's like certain roles and stories that are only right for certain ethnical, cultural, or racial or religious groups to play. It's like not the place for a white actor or actress to play. And I know people will say, "What like, well, those characters are fiction. Those stories are fake. Like it doesn't matter." But movies have an everlasting effect, and it's fantastic to see the impact that movies have. Like the stories that come from movies, they aren't forgotten. You know. So it's even more important that if we're gonna make an effect with these movies, we need to tell these stories accurately and honestly, you know? And I hear a lot of people say, well, like these white actors and actresses, maybe they're just more talented than those POC actors. And I'm like, maybe, maybe. And like, yeah, they're talented. I bet they're talented. Talent is the key. But there are so many talented POC actors and actresses that people are choosing to ignore because they don't see. That's the whole thing. They're underrepresented. So, of course, people are going to assume that they don't exist, but they do. And so, giving these minorities just this door to walk through and to, go and travel throughout this industry is so important because, in the end, what they do will have an impact on so many people, you know?
Um, I think I'm like conflicted about it because it kind of sounds terrible like hiring someone just because they are like a minority. But I mean, if we haven't made progress by now, then like who's to say like we're going to make progress in like 10 years from now, you know? Like if we keep going at the rate that we're going, we're just going to cast the same like familiar people, which are usually like white people and not people of color. So I think we just really have to get out of our comfort zones first, and then maybe it'll be like normalized and like it'll be kind of ingrained in our society that we should just hire people, you know, not by race or color, you know.
So my question is, why do you think the model minority myth is a problem or is problematic?
Um, I think it's harmful in like a multitude of ways. Like one, it obviously makes like it sort of paints Eastern Asians in particular as like the model minority, I guess. Like to what a good minority should be, which suggests that there are bad minorities, which of course is like damaging to other minority communities. But it also like sort of when an Asian person gets good grades, I think it kind of attributes it to like their race instead of their own hard work, which isn't really fair. Like just because someone like an Asian person got good grades, like it's not really fair to say you got good grades because you're Asian instead of like you got good grades because you
Right.
worked
I
hard for
so
them.
agree with you. Like, I feel like Asians, the whole minority thing, it's like Asians are held to such like they have this set standard, and if they don't reach it, they're not Asian or whatever. And like that is not okay. And it also like as like Ainay said, affects like other people. Like it's not like based on race. Like it should be based on your like hard work.
Yeah, I think that the model minority myth is definitely harmful to so many communities. And I also think it's harmful because it was a tool used by white supremacy to make Asians seem more like white people and to be seen as only successful. And like the problem with that is that it invalidates our pains, the racism and hatred that we face. And like the Asian community is so huge. So by perpetuating the model minority myth, we're ignoring the fact that there's a side of the spectrum that came to America with barely anything that are still struggling to make a living, you know? And so just not being able to like account for that is what makes the myth so harmful. Because again, it's a myth, it's not true, and it doesn't represent all of us. So letting it be the one tier point that speaks for us is just telling a lie.
Yeah, and I think that comes with like all stereotypes, you know. And it's always framed as like a positive stereotype, which I mean, for me like it has applied in my life because everybody thinks kind of like because you're Asian that you automatically get good grades, that you automatically like kind of succeed at school in like certain classes like math and stuff. But I think like when I do bad like on a test that's like I'm supposed to do good in because of this myth, it makes me feel invalidated, you know, like it doesn't make me feel good.
Like the pressure of the stereotype makes you burden yourself.
I think a lot of people like a lot of Asians do like maybe like more AP classes or do more stuff at like extracurriculars and stuff for like school. So like get in a good college because they're so pressured by this myth and stuff and this stereotype that they have to be smart and that they have to be overachievers.
I feel like I definitely personally like I don't even want to do some of the clubs that I do, but it's just like because I know this myth, I'm just like, I have to do that. Like I have to take this many APs. I have to do this much.
So, my next question is, why do you not like being asked, where are you from? Or are you from China? Those kind of questions. Why are they offensive to you?
Well, because like I was born here. Like why would I have to go to China? Like I mean, yes, I would love to travel there. My family is from there. Like it's really fun there. But like I was born here. Like, I was born in the same place as You probably were the person who was saying it. So it's pretty offensive. Because, like, an Asian American. American. Get that word? Yeah, and you just don't say that to people. Like, go back to her. Like, you could tell me go back to my house, but still, like, I did nothing wrong to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I recently watched this CNN interview with this Korean American singer named Eric Nam from Korea, and he's from Atlanta, so he was just talking about the shootings, and he was also touching on like the racism he's received and had to encounter, and his whole spiel was so relatable because like I also have been asked, where are you from? Where are you really from? But I'm from the United States. I was born here and I was raised here. So telling me that um, I'm not actually from here can only make me feel unwelcome and as if I don't belong here, even though I do. Because the United States is not a country for just one race, it's a country for everybody? So that's just a tough thing. And like it's annoying too. The question's annoying, definitely, but it's also just something that really makes people feel displaced.
Okay, next question, guys. Have you realized something at all about the rise in hate and racism towards Asians during this quarantine?
I shared this with Ainay, Jennie, and Shae before, but like Asians were given the stereotypes of being like harmless or weak and being smart and quiet and shy. And while those are negative stereotypes, our stereotypes differ a lot from those that Black people have to face. Like they're stereotyped as being dangerous or violent or as a threat. And like Asian people, we've only been seen as a threat like to the workforce, but besides that, we haven't really been seen as a threat physically or in person. So seeing that like as Corona is going on, our stereotypes have kind of changed now. Now we're seen as like this virus that can endanger lives or that has caused this pandemic. And so we're seen as like a physical threat now. We're seen as just a virus. And so even though what we're experiencing isn't a fraction of what the 400, 500 years that Black people have had to face in America, but it's just kind of like it's showing us like wow, like being given the stereotype of being dangerous really instills this fear that is harmful and that is painful to people. It's just like a reminder. It's a lesson.
I also think this was like in part like the super high increase in anti-Asian violence was in part due to like the Trump administration calling it like the Chinese virus and the Kung flu, literally instilling that logic, air quotes, in a bunch of people thinking that like, oh, because the virus originated in China, all Chinese people must have it in America. Like that doesn't make any sense. And further, like the whole like demonization of China right now, it's just like adding further stress onto the topic and not really
Yeah, I
helping.
feel like it has also brought like more awareness to everything like that has been going on, with the Asian communities for the last like many decades. And it's like we're finally getting some awareness. We're finally being heard, from like all our
Yeah. So it's almost like it's kind of a good thing. Like, I'm
but it's not a
glad. Like,
good
this.
thing.
Yeah, but I'm glad that 221, it's like we're finally getting awareness, and like the Black community is also getting like we're honestly, it's sad that it's like already 2021 and like hundreds of years has passed.
It shouldn't be like this though. Like it shouldn't be like after a tragedy, um everyone just like suddenly cares, but like before the tragedy and after it like stops becoming a trend, people don't care anymore. Do you see that trend with like Black Lives Matter and stuff?
Yeah, it happened over the summer with Black Lives Matter, and then and then it took like a shooting of 6 Asian women to die before anyone paid
Yeah.
attention, and we got what, like 2 days of Instagram short story shares out of that?
It took a global pandemic for people to finally notice the hate against Asians. It's and a bunch of shootings, it just It's always after tragedies. It's always after tragedies.
Yeah, and there's always like there's still like an overwhelming amount of people who like turn a blind eye to anti-Asian violence and like all the other types of violence in different communities. But it's just like come on, like use your privilege and your platform to do some good instead of just like sitting there because you're too afraid to like lose a few followers.
Okay, which leads to the second question. Why do you think there's tensions between Black and Asian community? Because we're supposed to like come together, like two minorities to come together. But why do you think there's tensions between it?
With the tensions between the Black and Asian community, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding, and there's also like flaws in each community that needs to be fixed. And I'm not one to speak up for the Black community, but I've heard from some Black people that they believe that there are problems in their community that they have to fix, which I respect. But I guess from my standpoint as an Asian American, in the Asian community, we have like severe instances of racism, whether that be to each other or to certain ethnic groups. And we also have like colorism issues. And I think that this isn't an excuse, but a lot of times, like Western media is very spread around the world. So a lot of Koreans in my case, they believe that Black people are dangerous or they're violent, as shown in Western movies, even though that's not true, because of the inaccurate representation. But I just think that like these instances, while they're not excusable for racism at all, I think it's just maybe like one of the possibilities and just kind of like a sense of finding reason for why there's tensions between us and what causes these misunderstandings. But yeah, it's just I guess we need to like we're at this place like where we're peaceful, I guess, but we're not really coexisting correctly, you know? Like I mean, we are able to, just stay side by side, but we're not fighting for each other and we're not like joining hands together. I think that there are so many like people from both sides that have spoken up and have made actions for these communities to join together, but we're still on that path, we're still on the path to stay connected, and I think that's great.
Another source of tension, I think, is that, like, sort of to what Rachel said, like, the portrayals of each group in the media, I feel like there are very different stereotypes for each group. Like, for example, like, Asian women are often supposed to be seen as, like, really submissive and docile, like, the whole lotus flower stereotype. And then black women, there's like the angry black woman stereotype that's seen as like aggressive, which I think is really unfair, damaging, and limiting to both of the respective groups. And like stereotypes like these can cause unnecessary tension and like stereotyping within these two groups.
And honestly, I feel like there's like so many times there's like competition between people about like who's being oppressed more. But I think we should just focus on the fact that people are being oppressed and not pin each other against one another. Like we shouldn't fight each other. We should fight against like white supremacy and together, you know? And there's like this whole thing about like um Asian people, Asian Americans being like the model minority and black people being like the problem minority. And because there's like that saying like if Asian people can thrive in America and like be exceptional and thrive in the roles in like the capitalistic society, then black people should be able to, you know? But the histories aren't really comparable, you know? It's like different kinds of oppression, and it all stems from white supremacy, which we should fight together.
I totally agree. And also, like, some of the history, like, I know I can't cite any specific examples off of the top of my head, but there is, like, a lot of history of, like, Black and Asian people working together against white supremacy, but it's, like, never talked about. I've only seen it a few times, like, in Instagram or the media. Like I've never heard about anything about it in school, and I just feel like maybe if we learned about that more, it would help us work together more, even though we should be working together, regardless of whether we have history or not.
Yeah, I feel like schools really need to like give us more like history on Asians and black communities and all that because like think, have you guys learned anything about that? Because I haven't.
I haven't learned any important history besides like we focus so much on the industrial revolution right now. No one cares. We know what the industrial revolution's about. They people make stuff. Okay? Lots of people make stuff.
I think through the utilization of education, we can definitely start to solve a lot of misunderstandings between our communities and understand that we are supposed to be there for each other. And I think that it'll allow us to see where credit is due and give credit to where it's due. For instance, like Asians have to, we have to give credit to the civil rights movements because that movement is what motivated the rights for us. And just being able to give a sense of honor and gratitude to the Black community is so important. And also, like, being able to just know that we're there for each other, like I said before, that we're there for each other is vital for us to be able to, start creating a better world for us and start creating a better country for
People
us.
need to stop acting like this is like a political thing. This is like a political argument that like people should be educated, about some of these topics in schools.
Okay, so the final question is, what are some ways people can help end the hate against Asian Americans?
Yeah, I put some resources in our bio on Instagram, and I will put some resources in the description of this podcast episode. But I think one of the most important things is to build awareness through education and conversation. Change those mentalities of the society around you by changing yours first and changing others around you. Because mindset drives change and change is what we need in society because right now, this is not it. I call out behaviors, like racist behaviors and racist slurs that you see yourself saying or other people saying. I think mindset is one of the most important things to fight against racism today. Also, support small businesses, Asian businesses, and donate and use your platform. Use your platform. Don't be afraid to lose a couple followers just because these people don't agree with you. Use your platform and be open about it. Be open and vocal about this stuff because that's one of the only ways we're going to make change if people spread awareness and talk and have conversation. So yeah.
And we're not trying to like oblige you to like post and talk about this issue every single day on social media. That's not what matters. You don't have to post every day. Like it's better to post like once a year and be sincere about it when you're talking about the issue than posting every day and just doing it so that you don't seem racist, or like so that you're trying to prove to people that you care, you know. As long as you do it sincere, no matter what you do, it's fine, do you and do what you think is best to spread the message.
Yeah. Well said, Rachel. um, I think that's it for today. So thank you guys so much for listening. Go educate yourselves. Bye. See you next episode.